New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is speaking up after there have been reports indicating that he and his team had essentially withheld numbers of coronavirus deaths in nursing homes. The nursing home deaths were undercounted by as much as 50%, and this is based on an investigation and some leaked audio, which Governor Cuomo and his team had no choice but to respond to. So they have confirmed the reports that they withheld the actual nursing home deaths. And they cited the fact that they were worried about Donald Trump using the deaths against them as the reason for withholding the information. So the governor's top aide, Melissa DeRosa, confirmed the contents of the recording of the September conference call with Democratic state legislators, first reported by the New York Post, in which she admits that the governor's office withheld the numbers due to concerns they would be used against us by the Justice Department under then President Donald Trump. So it's not just Republican lawmakers who are terrified of Donald Trump and his supporters. Apparently, even in a pandemic, in a crisis where accurate information is incredibly important, you have Democrats like Andrew Cuomo and his team withholding accurate data and information because they're afraid of how Trump might use it against them. Here's what DeRosa specifically said, quote, "He starts tweeting," meaning Trump, "that we killed everyone in nursing homes. He starts going after New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, starts going after California Governor Gavin Newsom, starts going after Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. He directs the Department of Justice to do an investigation into us. And basically we froze because then we were in a position where we weren't sure if what numbers we were going to give to the Department of Justice or what we give to you guys was going to be used against us. We weren't sure if there was going to be an investigation." I mean, there's been an investigation because you guys lied about the number of deaths in nursing homes. And Cuomo made some pretty horrendous mistakes early on in the pandemic, which, by the way, some of those mistakes, or I shouldn't even say mistakes, I mean, gutting the Medicaid system in the state was a giant error on his part. We talked about that on this show. But look, if we're gonna be critical of Republican lawmakers for engaging in this kind of stuff, as has been the case in Florida, we're certainly gonna hold a Democratic governor like Andrew Cuomo accountable as well.
Right, so there's only one caveat here, and then I'll talk about what I think are Cuomo's mistakes. Caveat is, at the time, Trump was threatening to withhold money from the states. So if any of the Democratic governors admitted a mistake, Trump's team might have used it to withhold funds from that particular state. So that's the kind of monster Donald Trump was, and they had to react to that to some degree. Now, having said that, the majority of the reason they held it seems to be that they did not want to be criticized, which, by the way, is politician 101. And so, yeah, Trump can criticize you. Legislators that you're talking to could criticize you, and the press could criticize you. And that's called being a representative of the people. And so it comes with the territory. If you don't want that, don't take the job. So it's an abdication of responsibility to not be honest, especially in the middle of a pandemic where people's lives are on the line. To the point that Anna was making about mistakes, you could say some of them were understandable or shared by Trump administration. Department of Health said that they should put coronavirus patients that came out of the hospital into nursing homes all the way back in March when it had first started, or we were first aware of it. And that turned out to be a horrible mistake. Yes, Definitely. It was an opinion shared by others, but nonetheless, they all made that mistake together, including Governor Cuomo. And that was not corrected until May with devastating consequences. So there's no reason, and especially Trump's gone, there's no more withholding of money from states based on who their governor is and whether they're blue or red. All that is gone now. So let's have real accountability for all Republicans and Democrats and the important mistakes that were made.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the frustrating part about all of this was, the way that the media responded to Andrew Cuomo early on in the pandemic was, in my opinion, ridiculously biased and way too generous to him. I mean, you had to rely on independent news sources in order to learn anything about what he was doing to gut the Medicaid system in the state as this pandemic was becoming more and more of an issue. And then aside from that, I mean, the media understandably and justifiably has been very critical of Republican lawmakers on a state level and all the mistakes that they made. And all Cuomo had to do was just show up and present himself as like this tough talker, and everyone was like enamored with him as if he was like the top leader. He's the one taking things seriously. He's the one who's infallible, no mistakes made. No, there were serious mistakes made. And I'm sorry, being afraid of Trump's criticism isn't enough of a reason to withhold important data from the public. That's what we saw happening in Florida, and it's unacceptable. It doesn't matter if it's a Democratic or Republican governor. The public deserves to know what's going on in these nursing homes, and more importantly, with COVID overall. No information should be withheld.
Well, look, that gets to the heart of it. So there's two different issues here, guys. One, we're not unaware of the size and scale of the mistakes. So if, I'll use an unfortunate analogy here. If, Cuomo is going around, in a gunfight knifing people, Trump was using a Gatling gun. And it was so loud and did so much damage that it was hard to notice the dude in the back with the knife, right? And I'm not saying that they were intentionally killing people. I'm just using that as an analogy of like, how do I focus on the knife when there's a giant Gatling gun ripping the place apart, right? And yes, the juxtaposition of Cuomo as a non-insane person trying to give you information as opposed to Bozo the clown going, I don't know what's happening, inject yourself with bleach, hydroxychloroquine, and the guy's juggling on air, squirting water from the flower on his lapels. So yes, I get the juxtaposition. Cuomo looked like he was a normal human being, and has people were like, oh my God, I didn't know in America we could elect non-insane people. I get all that, that's issue number one. But guys, what Ana said about gutting Medicaid is so important, and the central problem with the mainstream media, because it isn't just that they're distracted by the Gatling gun or the clown outfit, it's that they don't want to cover the problems of the Democratic establishment because they agree with the Democratic establishment. So not only did he gut Medicaid, which barely mentioned by the press before or after Trump, because they don't mind. The press thinks the Democrats are awesome. Democratic leadership is awesome. They're all they were smitten by Andrew Cuomo. And the idea of criticizing Cuomo was anathema, right? And so secondly, I mean, look, all of the Democratic leaders are against universal health care. Is that ever mentioned by the press? Wait, in the middle of the worst pandemic of our lifetime, it's not just Republicans, it's Democratic leaders saying we should not, under any circumstances, have universal health care. People should not be covered in their entirety. No, that's never mentioned. In fact, if it's mentioned at all in the press, it's applauded. Oh, bravo. Way to not do universal health care like every other developed nation because Medicare for all sucks. Oh, I hate Bernie Sanders and I hate Medicare for all. Bravo, Andrew Cuomo, bravo. Do not cover people. Do not cover people in the middle of a pandemic. Okay, well, with that press, of course Cuomo's gonna get away with botching the nursing home situation and healthcare overall during the pandemic, because the press mainly did cheerleading for him. Now that Trump is gone and the Gatling gun is gone, and they're like, oh yeah, I guess that's problematic. Well, you're a little late, but okay.
Yeah, look, just to buttress your point, without the added embellishments to the media stuff. Look, Biden can single-handedly expand Medicare to cover every single uninsured person in this country right now through an executive order. He can do it because of the fact that coronavirus is an emergency. And so he doesn't need to wait for congressional approval to do it. This is something that David Dayen has written about extensively, as part of his first 100 days series. It's just an effort to, it's the day one series that the American Prospect has put out, indicating that Biden actually has quite a bit of executive power that he can use without worrying about the obstructionists in Congress. But he has not chosen to expand Medicare to ensure that every single person in this country is covered under a pandemic. That's an important story. That's something that should be covered by more outlets other than just the American Prospect and some indie journalists, So
yeah, well, why are independent journalists the only ones doing journalism in America? That's because the mainstream media sucks and mainly works for the establishment. All right, I'm done.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.